I was driving past my son-in-law's house on a quiet Sunday afternoon when something made me pull over, a deep unease knotting in my chest. The moment I caught sight of the driveway, my stomach sank. Vanessa's silver Lexus was parked boldly by the gate, gleaming in the sunlight, perfectly out of place. My heart hammered as if it were trying to escape my chest, and I knew instinctively that something was off. I killed the engine and crept forward slowly, each step deliberate, as if the pavement itself could betray me. The closer I got, the more my pulse roared in my ears, each beat echoing the dread tightening inside me. Voices floated through the open window, innocent at first, then sharp, slicing through the quiet like knives. I froze behind a bush, trembling, as the words reached me, twisted and venomous, the familiar tone now unrecognizable. There she was, Vanessa, my wife of 25 years, laughing in a way that used to feel warm, now cold and calculated, while Dylan leaned against the bookcase, a confident smirk curling his lips. My hands shook as I picked up my phone, the cold metal slipping slightly, but I had to record, had to have proof of what I was seeing. Dylan was speaking, outlining a plan with the precision of someone who had rehearsed every detail, every word designed to sting. Once he signs, it's all ours, Vanessa said, her laugh slicing through the room like broken glass. I froze, disbelief colliding with bitter reality. I was watching betrayal unfold, calculated and deliberate, not just emotional but legal. Memories of decades of marriage and shared life flashed through my mind, love and trust dissolving into the fluorescent-lit room before me. My hands went numb around the phone, but I kept recording, a silent witness to a scene that felt unreal. I remembered Chloe's voice from our morning call, adult, confident, unaware of the storm outside her home, and a pang of protectiveness gripped me. The Lexus gleamed, innocent yet treacherous, a symbol of comfort twisted into betrayal, and I knew there was no turning back, only observation and strategy. Dylan's arrogance was infuriating, the way he stood with one hand in his pocket, as though the house and all it contained were already his. He spoke of legal loopholes, inheritance, and assets like numbers on a spreadsheet, while Vanessa interjected with chilling precision, tossing figures casually into the conversation. The company alone is worth $12 million, she said lightly, and then the house, the land, the investments, almost $20 million total. My knees weakened, and I clutched the car door for support, forcing myself to breathe evenly, to stay present. The weight of the situation pressed down, disbelief, rage, and sorrow twisting in my stomach, turning decades of shared dinners and celebrations into bitter memories. I thought of all the quiet moments, birthdays, anniversaries, dinners at home, now poisoned by this new reality. The house smelled faintly of vanilla and polished wood, utterly domestic, utterly ordinary, yet inside, a ruthless conspiracy was unfolding. I felt trapped, torn between anger and fear, wanting to confront them but knowing one misstep could ruin any advantage I had. I pressed my back against the shade of the maple tree, phone still recording, heart hammering, fingers trembling, nerves screaming for action. Chloe's adult voice lingered in my memory, confident and unaware, a mixture of vulnerability and composure that made my chest tighten. Dylan continued explaining every detail of their supposed master plan, oblivious to the fact I was documenting it all, silently undermining their confidence. Vanessa's laughter had grown sharper, a weapon, signaling that the familiar had disappeared, replaced by calculated malice. I imagined confronting them, words failing under rage and betrayal, yet I knew patience was my ally, recordings my only shield. Time stretched, every second heavy, the quiet hum of the neighborhood contrasting sharply with the storm inside. I shrank into the shadows, wishing I could disappear, knowing escape wasn't an option. The Lexus gleamed in the sun, innocent and treacherous, a prize I didn't want to see but couldn't ignore. I remembered the call from Chloe just minutes ago, her adult voice bright and composed, oblivious to the danger unfolding outside. My mind raced, thinking of how to protect what was mine, how to navigate this minefield of betrayal without losing myself. Every word Vanessa spoke dripped with entitlement and malice, painting a future where I was powerless, a passive observer in my own life. Fear and clarity coexisted inside me, sharpening instincts in the face of imminent danger. My phone felt like an extension of myself, the recorder a silent ally in a war I hadn't chosen but couldn't avoid. I studied every gesture, every glance, committing details to memory like ammunition for the inevitable confrontation. The house was deceptively calm, hiding rot beneath, and the weight of seeing it all, knowing it all, was nearly unbearable. I made a quiet vow to myself, I wouldn't let them rewrite my life without a fight, I would find a way to turn the tables. Every plan they whispered sounded like fiction, yet the consequences were terrifyingly real, tangible, capable of erasing decades of effort in a heartbeat. I remembered the victories of the past, moments I had fought to protect my family, now fragile yet essential reminders of why I couldn't back down. My heart pounded, not just from fear, but with a growing determination, the kind that builds quietly until it explodes at the right moment. I imagined Dylan's smirk freezing on his face when the tables turned, Vanessa's eyes wide with disbelief as assumptions crumbled. I thought of Chloe again, her adult composure a shield and motivation, and I knew I had to be careful, patient, relentless. Recording, observing, calculating became my rhythm, a lifeline, a way to assert control when everything else felt lost. Knowledge became my first weapon, a silent ally in a game they believed I didn't even know I was playing. And crouched there by the maple, sun beating down, Lexus gleaming like a prize I didn't want to see, I understood nothing would ever feel the same again. Time slowed, each laugh, each gesture, each word weighted with meaning, and I held my breath, fighting not to betray the storm inside. I could see Dylan's arrogance, Vanessa's cold glee, the way they moved rehearsed, performing to crush me before I could respond. A wave of adrenaline and nausea coursed through me, and I knew the next move had to be calculated, perfect. Memories of shared dinners, holidays, laughter, and love contrasted sharply with this reality, betrayal cutting deep. The car, the window, the voices, they were all pieces of a puzzle I had to solve, pieces I couldn't ignore if I wanted to protect what truly mattered. My hands trembled, but I kept the phone steady, recording everything, a silent witness to the unthinkable. I thought of the future, of justice, of turning the tables, and a spark of hope flickered in the pit of despair. And crouched there, Edward, heart pounding, recording, waiting, I knew this was just the beginning of a story that would change everything. I stayed hidden behind the maple, my phone still recording, trying to make sense of every word that Vanessa and Dylan exchanged. Their voices were calm, calculated, as if they had rehearsed this betrayal 1,000 times. Every laugh, every casual gesture carried a weight I couldn't ignore, a deliberate confidence meant to intimidate me. I pressed my back further into the shadow, my mind racing for a way to protect what was mine, to shield Chloe without tipping them off. The air smelled faintly of cut grass and exhaust from passing cars, a normal Sunday masking the chaos inside. Vanessa sipped from a crystal glass, her movements elegant and deliberate, while Dylan leaned back, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like a man who owned it. I forced myself to breathe evenly, each inhale and exhale a fragile lifeline in the midst of a storm. My mind flicked to every memory of trust and love that now felt like distant illusions, the weight of decades crashing into one unbearable moment. Dylan pointed toward the legal documents strewn across the coffee table, speaking about loopholes and clauses that could secure their plan, his voice steady, unwavering. Vanessa nodded, adding numbers with a sinister precision, a thrill in her tone that made my chest tighten. The betrayal wasn't sudden, it was orchestrated, calculated, and the realization made my hands tremble despite my focus. Chloe's presence lingered in my mind, her adult voice from our call echoing innocence, oblivious to the machinations around her. I knew I had to record every word, every nuance, as evidence and as protection, a silent witness to their confidence. My pulse throbbed in my ears, but I held my ground, crouched low, invisible, determined. The sun reflected off the Lexus, blindingly bright, a cruel reminder of how ordinary things could mask treachery. I clenched my jaw, the weight of anger and despair mixing, yet a spark of determination flickered inside me. Vanessa laughed again, light but poisonous, and Dylan responded with a casual smirk, unaware that their perfect performance was being documented. I imagined confronting them, the words falling uselessly before rage, disbelief, and betrayal, and knew patience was my ally, recordings my shield. Every gesture, glance, and inflection became a lifeline, a thread I clutched to keep control of the narrative. I pictured Chloe unaware, confident in her life, while the adults around her spun a web of deceit that could destroy everything we had built. The room smelled faintly of vanilla and polished wood, ordinary, domestic, but layered with an undercurrent of threat and manipulation. Each second stretched, heavy with possibilities and dangers, my breath caught between panic and resolve. I forced myself to observe, to stay present, every detail a piece of the puzzle I had to solve. And I realized that knowledge, cold and factual, was my only weapon against the storm threatening to engulf my family. Dylan shifted, gesturing to a folder containing financial statements and contracts, his voice casual yet precise, explaining contingencies and backup plans. Vanessa leaned forward, eyes sharp, a predator calculating her next move, delighting in the security they believed they had. My chest tightened, a mixture of fury and grief, as I silently catalogued every word, every number, every plan for what they assumed was their uncontested victory. Chloe's laughter from earlier flickered in my mind, innocent and unaware, fueling my need to act strategically rather than impulsively. I felt a wave of nausea and adrenaline mix, a bitter cocktail of fear and resolve, forcing my mind to work faster than my pulse. Every second, the quiet hum of the neighborhood contrasted sharply with the storm inside the house, an ordinary Sunday masking a carefully plotted betrayal. My hands trembled slightly, but I gripped the phone, recording each calculated step they took toward what they thought would be their gain. I realized that patience and information were my allies now, and I vowed to wait for the perfect moment. Vanessa traced a finger over a set of papers, her smile confident, and Dylan chuckled softly, their synergy terrifyingly precise. The calmness of their voices clashed with the chaos in my chest, a storm of fear, rage, and determination coalescing into focus. I thought of Chloe, adult and trusting, unaware of the danger orchestrating around her, and my protective instincts surged. I needed to act wisely, to be methodical, recording their overconfidence, their steps, their intentions. Every laugh, every casual movement, every glance was ammunition, a way to reclaim control without tipping my hand. The Lexus outside glinted innocently, betraying nothing, while the reality within was viciously precise and calculated. I felt the sting of decades of trust and love twisting into betrayal, yet the determination inside me grew sharper. And crouched there, Edward, recording, watching, I knew the next move had to be careful, precise, and deliberate. I crouched in the shadow of the maple, every heartbeat echoing in my chest, as Vanessa and Dylan continued their conversation inside. Their words were deliberate, measured, as if rehearsed, each one designed to assert dominance over a life they assumed was already slipping through my fingers. I could see Dylan's casual gestures, his hands tracing the edges of documents, a smirk curling his lips, confident in the legality and certainty of their plan. Vanessa's laughter cut sharply through the air, sweet and poisonous, a reminder of how familiarity can twist into betrayal. Every inch of my body screamed to rush in, confront them, demand answers, yet reason held me back. I had to stay hidden, methodical, and observant. Chloe's adult voice from our call replayed in my mind, calm and unsuspecting, reminding me what was truly at stake. The warm light of the room cast long shadows, distorting their ordinary movements into something sinister. I gripped the phone tighter, recording, every detail a lifeline, a weapon, a silent witness to the unfolding deception. Dylan flipped through a set of contracts, his calm voice outlining contingencies, backup plans, and loopholes, oblivious to the fact that I could hear every word. Vanessa nodded, leaning in, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction, plotting how their combined efforts could secure decades of wealth and control. I felt my stomach knot in anger and disbelief, yet I forced my focus inward, cataloging every phrase, every figure, every calculated step. Chloe's life was at risk, even if she didn't know it, and that knowledge grounded me, gave me purpose, and fueled my patience. The quiet hum of the neighborhood outside belied the tension inside the house, the contrast stabbing at my senses. Each second stretched, heavy and deliberate, a reminder that the smallest misstep could ruin everything. I took shallow breaths, my body taut, ready to spring into action when the moment arrived. And as Vanessa traced her finger across a pile of statements, smiling at Dylan, I realized the time to strike hadn't come yet. I had to wait for the perfect opportunity. Their voices mingled, a casual symphony of malice and confidence, and I recorded it all, committed every detail to memory, storing it for the inevitable confrontation. Vanessa's tone was deliberate, teasing, almost gleeful, as she described financial projections and anticipated victories. Dylan leaned back in the armchair, smug, convinced of their advantage, oblivious to my quiet surveillance. I imagined Chloe's life unraveling if I acted hastily, and a cold patience settled over me, replacing the initial surge of anger. Each movement, every smile, every glance became ammunition, tools to protect Chloe and reclaim control. I felt a strange cocktail of fear, determination, and adrenaline, sharpening my senses and forcing my mind into clarity. Outside, the Lexus gleamed, perfectly ordinary, a cruel contrast to the storm inside the walls of their home. I pressed my back against the tree, heart hammering, knowing the recordings were my only shield until the perfect moment. Vanessa's laughter rose again, light and poisonous, while Dylan smirked confidently, their coordination terrifying in its precision. I catalogued every gesture, every nuance, storing it like treasure for the confrontation I would eventually orchestrate. Chloe's adult composure, trusting and unsuspecting, weighed heavily on me, a reminder of what I needed to protect. I forced myself to breathe, focusing on observation, recording, absorbing every detail for the moment when patience would turn into action. Their planning, their confidence, their casual cruelty, all of it would be used against them when the time came. The quiet Sunday afternoon outside was a stark contrast to the calculated chaos inside, each movement, each word a threat to everything I held dear. My hands trembled slightly, but I gripped the phone, my lifeline, my silent ally in a war I hadn't chosen but couldn't avoid. And crouched there, Edward, hidden and alert, I knew the storm was only gathering strength. Time stretched, every second weighed with anticipation, each laugh and glance a test of patience and resolve. I imagined confronting them too soon, the consequences, the disaster that could ensue, and forced myself to remain silent, invisible, calculating. Dylan's arrogance was a weapon in their arsenal, and Vanessa's cold glee made the house feel like a trap I had to navigate. I catalogued every word, every smirk, every calculated pause, turning them into strategies, contingencies, and potential leverage. Chloe's future, her life, depended on my ability to remain patient, observant, and precise. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and vanilla, domestic normality masking a meticulously plotted betrayal. Each recorded detail was a thread in a web I intended to untangle and use to protect everything I valued. And as I crouched, heart hammering, I knew the next move would need to be perfect, calculated, and unstoppable. The quiet tension pressed down like a physical weight as I stayed crouched behind the tree, phone in hand, every sense alert. Vanessa's laugh, soft and deliberate, carried the power to unnerve, a weapon carefully honed over years. Dylan moved with calculated precision, tracing numbers, gestures, and words with the casual confidence of someone who believed the house, and everything in it, was already his. I forced my focus inward, cataloging every movement, every phrase, every detail as a necessary shield. Chloe's adult presence, trusting and unaware, pressed on me with urgency, grounding me in the stakes at hand. Each breath was a battle to remain calm, each heartbeat a reminder of the delicate balance between action and observation. Outside, the sun glinted off the Lexus, a cruel symbol of normalcy and treachery entwined. I reminded myself to remain patient, this moment was not yet mine to act. Dylan leaned over the coffee table, pointing at the legal documents, explaining contingencies with the air of certainty that only arrogance can grant. Vanessa's smile was sharp, satisfied, a predator confident in its prey's ignorance. I catalogued every detail, my fingers gripping the phone, my mind racing through potential moves, counter-moves, outcomes, and risks. Chloe's future hung delicately in the balance, and every recorded word was a lifeline, a way to reclaim control without tipping my hand. The ordinary sense of the room, vanilla, polished wood, mocked the extraordinary treachery unfolding within. Every second stretched, heavy and deliberate, the calm outside a facade masking a storm of betrayal. I pressed against the shadow, heart hammering, knowing every choice from this point would shape the outcome. Patience was my only ally, observation my weapon, recordings my shield. Vanessa's laughter rose again, melodic and poisonous, while Dylan smirked, blissfully unaware of the silent witness documenting their plan. I imagined confronting them too soon, the potential disaster, and reminded myself to wait, to calculate, to let patience dictate the timing. Each gesture, each glance, each phrase became ammunition, a means to reclaim what they assumed they controlled. Chloe's adult innocence, her unawareness of their plotting, was my motivation and my shield, guiding my patience and strategy. Adrenaline and fear mingled, sharpening my senses, forcing clarity in the chaos of betrayal. The Lexus outside gleamed, perfectly ordinary, a cruel mirror to the calculated manipulation within. I knew the recordings were my only guarantee, a silent testimony for the moment when I would finally act. The sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows over the driveway, but I stayed crouched, eyes glued to the window, phone recording, every nerve taut. Vanessa and Dylan moved with an effortless coordination that chilled me, each gesture, glance, and word carefully calculated, rehearsed over time. I could see Dylan leaning casually against the armchair, yet every flick of his hand traced deliberate points, confirming their strategy. Vanessa's laughter punctuated the air, light but venomous, a sharp contrast to the storm brewing in my chest. My heartbeat was deafening, yet I forced calm, focusing on every detail, knowing patience would be my ally. Chloe's adult voice from our earlier call echoed in my mind, oblivious to the treachery inside her home, and I clenched my jaw. The room smelled faintly of vanilla and polished wood, domestic and ordinary, hiding the calculated betrayal within. I reminded myself, I had to record, observe, and wait, only then could I reclaim what was being stolen. Dylan opened a folder, casually explaining financial contingencies and legal loopholes, confident and arrogant, unaware of my silent presence. Vanessa leaned in, eyes sharp, plotting with meticulous precision, delighting in the illusion of control. I pressed closer into the shadow, stomach twisting, cataloging every phrase, every gesture, each moment a weapon for the confrontation to come. Chloe's adult composure, trustful and unaware, weighed heavily on me, a reason to act strategically rather than impulsively. Outside, the Lexus reflected the last rays of sun, a cruelly innocent symbol of a world turned upside down. I forced my breath to remain steady, adrenaline and anger coiling tightly, sharpening my senses and focus. Each second stretched, loaded with danger, while I silently calculated every next step, every contingency. And as Vanessa traced her finger along the edge of the documents, smiling at Dylan, I realized the perfect moment had not yet arrived. Their voices blended, calm and confident, each word a layer of their carefully constructed deception. I catalogued every laugh, every casual gesture, storing it as ammunition, knowledge that could protect Chloe and me when the moment came. Dylan's smirk, Vanessa's gleam, their synchronized movements, they believed I was blind, passive, unaware. I imagined the chaos if I acted too soon, and patience hardened into strategy, patience as lethal as any weapon. Each recorded phrase, glance, and laugh became a thread I could pull later, a way to reclaim control. The house appeared ordinary to any passerby, masking a storm of deceit and betrayal, and the contrast made my resolve sharper. My hands trembled slightly, but I kept the phone steady, a silent sentinel capturing every malicious act. And crouched there, Edward, heart hammering, mind calculating, I knew that watching, waiting, and recording were my only paths to victory. Vanessa leaned closer, discussing property, finances, and future plans with a precision that made my chest tighten. Dylan's confidence was infuriating, his smugness infusing every gesture, yet it also revealed weaknesses if observed carefully. I felt the rush of adrenaline tempered by clarity, understanding that patience would allow me to exploit every misstep. Chloe's safety and trust were my anchor, and the need to protect her guided every careful decision I made. I catalogued each gesture, every word, committed to memory, building a map of their strategy. Outside, the fading sunlight reflected off the Lexus, perfectly innocent, masking the deceit and greed inside. I remained crouched, heart pounding, waiting for the precise moment when knowledge and timing would turn the tables. And as Vanessa's laughter rose again, I forced myself to breathe evenly, reminding myself that patience was my only true weapon. The light shifted as afternoon melted into early evening, shadows stretching across the driveway, but I remained hidden, recording, observing, heart taut with tension. Vanessa and Dylan continued their orchestrated exchange, words calm and deliberate, every laugh and gesture a calculated move in their silent war. Dylan's casual stance belied his precision, Vanessa's expressions, sharp and confident, revealed the predator beneath the domestic facade. Each phrase, each smirk, each glance was stored in my mind and on my recording, building a map of their deception. Chloe's adult composure replayed in my memory, trusting, unaware, a powerful motivation for my vigilance. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and vanilla, ordinary on the surface, concealing ruthless intent beneath. My pulse throbbed, a mixture of anger, fear, and determination, sharpening my senses to an almost painful clarity. I reminded myself that haste would ruin everything, patience was the weapon I needed more than any confrontation. Dylan spoke of contingencies and legal loopholes as if rehearsed, confident that everything was under their control. Vanessa's laughter, light but cutting, reinforced the casual cruelty of their plan. I catalogued each gesture, each subtle shift, storing them as ammunition for the inevitable confrontation. Chloe's life, her trust and security, were the stakes that made precision essential, replacing impulse with strategy. Outside, the Lexus reflected the golden light, a silent witness to the tension and deception unfolding within. Every second seemed stretched, heavy, charged with the potential for disaster, and I remained crouched, waiting for the right moment. The contrast between domestic normalcy and calculated betrayal made the weight of knowledge almost unbearable. I tightened my grip on the phone, knowing that observation was my only path to reclaim control. Vanessa traced her finger across a stack of documents, smiling as she outlined assets and plans with Dylan. Their coordinated movements and rehearsed tones were infuriating, yet revealing if carefully observed. I forced myself to remain still, cataloging every phrase, every glance, storing them for when timing would allow me to act. Chloe's adult innocence and trust added urgency, reminding me why patience and calculation were essential. Each gesture and word became part of a mental map I could exploit later, knowledge forming a silent weapon. The faint smell of vanilla and polished wood contrasted sharply with the cruelty inside the house. Every heartbeat, every second, sharpened my resolve to protect what mattered most. And as the shadows lengthened, I remained crouched, Edward, watching, recording, preparing for the right moment. Evening settled over the neighborhood, the warm glow of the sun fading, but I stayed crouched, phone recording, every nerve taut with tension. Vanessa and Dylan moved through the house with a practiced ease, words measured, gestures precise, as if rehearsed to perfection. Dylan leaned casually against the bookshelf, exuding confidence, while Vanessa's smile carried a sharp edge, betraying delight in their calculated plan. Each phrase and gesture etched itself into my mind, catalogued carefully, every detail a thread I could pull later. Chloe's adult composure echoed in my memory, trusting and unaware, reminding me what I needed to protect at all costs. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and vanilla, ordinary on the surface, masking the cold precision of betrayal within. Every heartbeat reminded me of the delicate balance between patience and action, the need for timing in this silent war. I pressed closer to the shadow, gripping the phone, knowing knowledge and observation were my only allies. Dylan outlined contingencies, clauses, and legal loopholes as if rehearsed, his confidence infuriating yet revealing vulnerabilities for those paying attention. Vanessa leaned forward, eyes sharp, her laughter light but poisonous, echoing in the otherwise quiet room. I forced myself to remain still, cataloging every detail for later, aware that acting too soon could ruin everything. Chloe's presence, trusting and unsuspecting, added urgency to every careful decision I made. Each recorded laugh, glance, and word was a weapon, a silent arsenal to reclaim control. Outside, the Lexus gleamed innocently, masking the storm of deceit within the house. I reminded myself that patience, not confrontation, would be the key to protecting what mattered. And crouched there, Edward, heart pounding, I knew the right moment would come, and I had to be ready. Vanessa discussed the plan with precision, laying out steps and expected outcomes, her tone calm, calculated, but with an unmistakable thrill. Dylan nodded, smirking, confident in the control they believed they had over the situation. I catalogued each phrase, gesture, and expression, storing them as evidence, as ammunition for the confrontation I would orchestrate. Chloe's adult trust, her innocence in this chaos, was a sharp motivation, grounding my patience. Every movement, every word, every laugh became part of a mental map, a path to regain power in a game they thought they dominated. The house smelled domestic, ordinary, yet within it thrived a calculated betrayal that could destroy everything. I tightened my grip on the phone, heart hammering, patience and observation my only weapons. And as shadows deepened inside the living room, I waited, Edward, ready to turn knowledge into action. Time slowed, each second stretched, heavy with tension and anticipation, every word a reminder of what was at stake. Dylan's arrogance and Vanessa's cold pleasure were layers of a plan that could be undone with careful observation. I forced myself to breathe, focusing on recording, cataloging, preparing, knowing every second mattered. Chloe's safety and trust anchored my patience, guiding every careful decision, replacing impulse with calculation. Every gesture, glance, and phrase became part of a strategy one could use when the time came. The Lexus outside reflected the fading sunlight, a silent witness to the treachery within. I catalogued everything in my mind and on my recording, each detail a piece of the puzzle. And crouched in the shadows, Edward, I understood that knowledge was power, and patience would be the weapon that saved us. Night settled fully over the street, the first stars appearing in the sky, but I remained hidden, recording, heart pounding, senses alert. Vanessa and Dylan moved effortlessly, as if the house belonged to them, their words calm, deliberate, rehearsed, yet each gesture revealed intentions and vulnerabilities. Dylan leaned casually, confident, smirking, while Vanessa's sharp laughter sliced through the room, a reminder of how easily familiarity can become weaponized. I catalogued each movement, phrase, and glance, storing them for the confrontation I knew would come. Chloe's adult trust echoed in my mind, reminding me what was at stake, fueling patience and strategic thinking. The room smelled of vanilla and polished wood, ordinary and domestic, masking the cold precision of betrayal within. Every heartbeat, every second, was weighted with tension, the need for perfect timing growing sharper. I gripped the phone tightly, Edward, observing, recording, calculating my path forward. Dylan spoke of contingencies, legal loopholes, and expected outcomes, confident in their control, oblivious to my silent presence. Vanessa leaned in, smiling, eyes glinting with anticipation, orchestrating their plan as if it were inevitable. I forced myself to remain invisible, cataloging every detail for later, aware that impatience could ruin everything. Chloe's life, her adult composure and trust, demanded that I act strategically, every observation deliberate. Every laugh, glance, and gesture became part of a mental map I could exploit, knowledge building silently in my favor. The Lexus outside reflected the last of the night's light, a cruelly innocent symbol of normalcy hiding manipulation. I reminded myself that patience, observation, and timing were the only tools I had to protect what mattered. And crouched there in the shadows, Edward, I knew that the storm was nearing its climax. Vanessa's laughter rose, light but cutting, while Dylan smirked confidently, their synchronization terrifying in its precision. I catalogued each phrase, each movement, every nuanced glance, storing them in memory and recording alike. Chloe's trust and composure weighed heavily on me, keeping focus and patience intact despite the rage inside. Each gesture, each word, each calculated laugh became ammunition in a battle they thought I didn't know existed. The ordinary scent of the room, the polished wood, the vanilla, mocked the extraordinary tension within. I remained crouched, heart pounding, every second sharpening my determination to act at the perfect moment. Observation, recording, calculation became my lifeline, silent and powerful, preparing me for the confrontation ahead. And as night deepened, Edward, I understood that the moment of action would define everything to come. Time stretched, heavy and deliberate, each second a test of patience and resolve, every laugh and gesture weighted with consequence. Dylan's arrogance, Vanessa's thrill, the confidence in their voices and actions, were all threads I catalogued carefully for leverage. I focused on Chloe, trusting and unaware, the anchor to my calm and strategy, and breathed steadily, heart taut with anticipation. Every recorded detail became a piece of the puzzle, a path to reclaim control from a betrayal they assumed was complete. The contrast between domestic normality and calculated malice sharpened my senses, forcing clarity. I gripped the phone, steady despite the tension, knowing the recordings were my silent allies. Shadows stretched across the room, each movement carrying meaning, every gesture contributing to the silent war I waged. And crouched in the darkness, Edward, I understood that the storm was about to turn, and when it did, it would be unstoppable. The house had settled into a tense silence, the shadows stretching across every corner, yet I remained hidden, phone in hand, every nerve alert. Vanessa and Dylan moved through the room with a practiced ease, their words calm, precise, rehearsed, but every gesture betrayed subtle cracks in their confidence. Dylan leaned back, smirking, hands tracing the edge of the documents with calculated precision, while Vanessa's laughter, sweet yet sharp, echoed in the quiet like a warning. I catalogued every motion, every glance, every syllable, storing them for the confrontation I knew was coming. Chloe's adult trust replayed in my mind, her calm voice from earlier, reminding me what truly mattered. The scent of polished wood and vanilla filled the room, ordinary yet hiding malice beneath its surface. My heartbeat roared, but I forced calm, each breath a measured effort to remain patient and invisible. The Lexus outside reflected the dim evening light, a silent witness to the tension inside, gleaming innocently yet betraying nothing. Dylan spoke of contingencies and expected outcomes, confident and arrogant, unaware of my silent scrutiny. Vanessa leaned in, plotting, eyes gleaming, her calm composure hiding the thrill of their plan. I pressed against the shadows, heart racing, cataloging every word, every subtle inflection, preparing for the moment I could act decisively. Chloe's safety, her adult trust and composure, fueled my patience and sharpened my mind. Each gesture and phrase became part of a mental map I could exploit, knowledge forming silently into power. The ordinary domestic sense mocked the extraordinary stakes within, the contrast sharpening my resolve. I gripped the phone tightly, every second pressing, waiting, observing, calculating. And crouched in darkness, Edward, I knew that timing would be everything. Vanessa laughed lightly, a sound meant to soothe and intimidate, while Dylan smirked, confident in their perceived control. I catalogued each gesture, every subtle movement, storing them carefully, turning observation into strategy. Chloe's trust and unawareness anchored my patience, guiding each decision, replacing impulsiveness with calculation. Every recorded laugh, glance, and word became ammunition, a map to reclaim power. The domestic ordinary clashed with their hidden cruelty, heightening every heartbeat, sharpening focus. I pressed closer into the shadow, Edward, every muscle taut, preparing for the perfect moment to intervene. Each second stretched, weighted with tension, a quiet battlefield of knowledge and patience. And I reminded myself, the storm would turn, and when it did, there would be no turning back. The tension thickened, every word and movement heavy with consequence, each gesture a test of patience and focus. Dylan's arrogance and Vanessa's thrill only revealed more about their plan for me to exploit later. Chloe's life and trust provided the anchor I needed to remain patient, precise, and focused. Every recorded detail became a potential weapon, each laugh and glance a step toward reclaiming control. The Lexus outside gleamed silently, innocent in appearance, betraying nothing of the chaos inside. My grip tightened on the phone, Edward, every sense heightened, every thought mapped. Observation, recording, and calculation became my lifeline, preparing me for the confrontation that would shift everything. And crouched there, heart hammering, I understood that the climax was near, and patience was the key to victory. Night deepened, the house cloaked in darkness, yet Vanessa and Dylan continued their careful maneuvering, words measured, gestures rehearsed. Dylan traced documents, confident, unaware of my silent observation, while Vanessa's laughter rang sharp and deliberate, hiding delight in their own plan. I pressed further into the shadow, heart pounding, cataloging every motion, every phrase, every nuance for the confrontation to come. Chloe's adult composure and trust replayed in my mind, reminding me what I was protecting. The smell of polished wood and faint vanilla masked malice, ordinary yet deceptive, sharpening my focus. Each second stretched heavy, every heartbeat a drum of anticipation, patience my only ally. I gripped the phone, Edward, storing knowledge silently, knowing observation alone would prepare me for the moment to strike. Shadows of the room twisted the familiar into something sinister, a stage for deception, a battlefield for truth. Dylan outlined financial contingencies and expected outcomes, confident in control, oblivious to my silent witness. Vanessa leaned forward, eyes sharp, orchestrating her plan with precision, delighting in her perceived advantage. I catalogued each gesture, each phrase, every laugh, storing them as tools for reclaiming power. Chloe's trust and composure guided my patience, replacing impulsiveness with careful strategy. Each word became ammunition, each glance a thread I could pull when timing was right. The ordinary sense of home clashed with the extraordinary tension, heightening every sense. I pressed back into the shadows, Edward, heart taut, knowing knowledge and patience were my only weapons. And in that quiet room, I waited, observing, cataloging, preparing for the perfect moment. Vanessa's laughter rose, casual yet cutting, while Dylan smirked confidently, their synchronization chilling in precision. I catalogued every detail, storing each as a mental map for when action was necessary. Chloe's trust anchored my patience, every recorded word a safeguard. Every movement, every laugh, every glance became part of my silent strategy. The ordinary domestic setting mocked the extraordinary betrayal occurring within, sharpening my senses further. I gripped the phone tighter, Edward, heart hammering, patience guiding me through the storm. Time slowed, stretched with anticipation, observation becoming my only weapon. And I knew the moment to act would define everything, for Chloe, for me, and for the future. The tension thickened, every heartbeat echoing with the weight of betrayal, each gesture a deliberate test of my patience. Dylan's confidence and Vanessa's thrill betrayed cracks, revealed subtle vulnerabilities. Chloe's adult trust and innocence were the anchor to my strategy, guiding every decision. Each recorded phrase, laugh, and glance became ammunition for the confrontation ahead. The house smelled ordinary, hiding extraordinary malice, increasing the stakes with every second. I pressed into the shadows, Edward, senses sharp, waiting for the perfect opportunity. Observation, calculation, and patience became my shield, preparing me for the inevitable moment. And crouched there, knowing the storm's climax was near, I understood the power of timing. The house was cloaked in deep shadows, only the faint glow of streetlights cutting through the windows, yet I remained crouched, phone recording, heart hammering. Vanessa and Dylan moved with the ease of people who believed the house and everything in it was already theirs. Every gesture, glance, and syllable was meticulously catalogued in my mind, each a piece of the puzzle I could use later. Dylan leaned casually against the armchair, smirk curling his lips, oblivious to my silent observation, while Vanessa's laughter rang sharp, sweet, and venomous. Chloe's adult composure echoed in my memory, reminding me of what truly mattered, what I needed to protect above all else. The faint scent of vanilla and polished would mask the calculated betrayal unfolding within, ordinary and domestic on the surface. Each second stretched with weight, tension building as patience became my weapon and observation my lifeline. I pressed deeper into the shadows, Edward, heart taut, knowing that knowledge and timing would soon allow me to reclaim control. Vanessa traced her fingers over a stack of papers, smiling as she outlined assets, plans, and contingencies with Dylan, confidence radiating from every movement. I catalogued each word, gesture, and laugh, storing them as mental ammunition for the confrontation I had carefully prepared. Chloe's trust and composure were my anchor, reminding me that strategy, patience, and precision were the only way to protect her. Each recorded phrase became a thread I could pull to turn the tables, each movement a subtle clue to exploit. The ordinary domesticity of the house clashed with the extraordinary tension within, sharpening every sense, heightening every heartbeat. I pressed back into the shadows, Edward, aware that acting too soon could destroy everything, yet waiting carried its own weight of anticipation. Observation, recording, patience, all became one strategy, one silent weapon against their arrogance. And as Vanessa's laughter echoed, light yet poisonous, I knew the perfect moment was approaching, the storm about to break. Dylan spoke of contingencies and legal loopholes with casual certainty, confident that every move was under control, oblivious to the silent witness cataloging it all. Vanessa leaned forward, eyes glinting with excitement, orchestrating their plan with meticulous precision, delighting in their perceived advantage. I forced myself to remain invisible, every muscle taut, cataloging every nuance for later use, every laugh and glance potential leverage. Chloe's adult trust grounded my patience, reinforcing the need for precision, strategy, and timing over impulsiveness. The ordinary sense of vanilla and polished would mask extraordinary malice, each second a test of endurance and focus. I gripped the phone tighter, Edward, senses sharp, every detail recorded, observation becoming the tool I needed to reclaim what was being stolen. Time stretched, anticipation thick and heavy, as the final steps of their plan began to reveal themselves. And in the shadows, crouched, watching, waiting, I realized the storm was moments from breaking. Every heartbeat, every second, intensified the tension, each gesture revealing more than Dylan and Vanessa intended. I catalogued every movement, every word, storing knowledge as a silent arsenal for the moment I would strike. Chloe's adult presence, trusting and unaware, fueled my patience, sharpening focus, and giving purpose to every calculated observation. The ordinary domestic world outside contrasted with the deception within, a cruel reminder of appearances and reality. I pressed against the shadows, Edward, phone steady, heart pounding, ready to transform observation into action. Each laugh, glance, phrase became part of a strategy that would reclaim control, protect Chloe, and overturn their arrogance. The storm was ready, the time for action approaching, and patience remained my sharpest weapon. And as night deepened, I understood that knowledge and timing would soon allow me to rewrite the course of what had been stolen. The room was silent, Vanessa and Dylan unaware that every word, every movement, every subtle gesture had been meticulously recorded and stored in my mind. Dylan's confidence, Vanessa's gleam of triumph, their synchronization, all betrayed their arrogance, each a thread I could pull. Chloe's adult trust replayed in my memory, grounding my patience and fueling the meticulous strategy one had crafted over hours of observation. The ordinary sense of polished wood and vanilla contrasted sharply with the extraordinary tension and betrayal within, sharpening every sense. I pressed deeper into the shadows, Edward, heart pounding, knowing that every detail I had catalogued would soon serve as leverage. Each recorded phrase, laugh, and glance became a silent weapon, a map to reclaim control and protect Chloe. Time stretched, heavy with anticipation, every heartbeat an echo of the storm ready to break. And in that quiet, tense room, I prepared to turn knowledge into power. Vanessa and Dylan moved through the room with practiced ease, unaware that their every action was observed and catalogued. I gripped the phone tightly, Edward, every sense alert, knowing the moment of action had arrived. Chloe's adult trust and innocence anchored my strategy, reminding me why patience, precision, and timing were essential. Each laugh, glance, and gesture became ammunition, each word a clue, each movement a thread to unravel their arrogance. The ordinary domestic setting mocked the extraordinary stakes, highlighting the power hidden in patient observation. I focused, calculating, preparing to act, every recorded detail a step toward reclaiming control. The storm was here, and patience had prepared me for the decisive moment. Every second, every heartbeat, carried the weight of consequence, and I knew the next step would change everything. Dylan leaned over the documents, speaking casually of contingencies, oblivious to the presence that had silently catalogued every detail. Vanessa's laughter cut sharply, revealing triumph and confidence, unaware that I held the key to undermining them. I pressed back into the shadows, Edward, phone recording, heart racing, every second intensifying the anticipation of the moment I would act. Chloe's adult trust replayed in my mind, a reminder of what I was protecting, fueling focus and patience. Each recorded gesture, word, and glance was ammunition, a blueprint to reclaim control and shift the power balance. The ordinary, polished domesticity of the room hid the extraordinary stakes, making the tension almost unbearable. Observation, calculation, and patience had built a silent arsenal, ready to strike at the perfect time. And crouched there, Edward, I prepared to activate the plan that would change everything. As Dylan spoke, detailing legal loopholes and anticipated outcomes, and Vanessa traced her fingers over the documents with precise delight, I felt the culmination of hours of observation ready to crystallize. Every gesture, glance, and phrase I had recorded became a weapon, a map, a strategy to reclaim control and protect Chloe. The ordinary household, the scent of vanilla and polished wood, contrasted sharply with the extraordinary tension inside, every second laden with anticipation. My grip on the phone was firm, Edward, every sense heightened, every thought focused on timing and precision. Chloe's trust and composure were my anchor, guiding the calculated steps I would now take. Time stretched, anticipation sharpened, and the storm I had waited for began to break. Observation, patience, and knowledge had prepared me for this precise moment. And in the silent tension of the night, I knew that everything was about to change, and it would start with just 9 words. I had watched everything unfold, every detail of Chloe's life nearly slipping through my fingers, and in that moment, it hit me, life doesn't have to feel stuck, hopeless, or repetitive. For years, I'd struggled, trapped in routines that led nowhere, thinking opportunities were rare, coincidences, or just luck. But then, almost impossibly simple, I discovered 9 words. Just 9 words. Spoken the right way, they sparked something inside me, an energy that aligned opportunities, opened doors I didn't even know existed, and made life suddenly feel abundant and full of possibility. Opportunities, people, ideas, they all started appearing at exactly the right time, as if the universe was finally listening. And the most incredible part? Anyone can do this. If you want to feel the same shift, I left a sign in the comment pinned below, and it all begins with just 9 words.